A flood-related lawsuit goes back before the courts. A city man calls for a plebiscite on a plan to end hospital overcrowding. And Kenyan officials move to end the Nairobi mall attack standoff. Good evening and thank you for being with us. A $375 million class action lawsuit against the city of Thunder Bay has just received certification.
A judge in Superior Court signed off on the suit late this afternoon after there was consent from the city and the lawyer representing those named in the class action. Lawyer Sandy Zaitsev says the two sides agreed on definitions of the class, a major hurdle according to Zaitsev that could have been contested for years and wasted a lot of time and money. The lawsuit seeks $200 million in damages related to the May 28, 2012 flooding and sewage plant backup in the city. Another $175 million in special damage are also being sought.
We have up to this point focused strictly on what we call liability. Liability means what were the causes of what people are calling a flood. This was not a flood. This was a sewage treatment plant that was mismanaged and poorly operated. And that's why the sewage backed up into people's basements. That's why, because there was negligence we allege in the operation of the plant.
Zaitsev says roughly 400 people are currently signed on to the legal action, but he feels as many as 3,000 people will join now that it's been certified. So far, the city will only say this matter was the subject of a detailed legal report, and council were fully supportive of the direction given to the city solicitor. The city is being represented by a Toronto law firm. Zaitsev says he is hopeful the case resolves itself within a year or two.
One of the larger condominium developments currently going up in Thunder Bay may soon get a whole lot bigger. The club residence currently under construction at the Thunder Bay Country Club could grow by 29 units if City Council approves a plan tonight. The original plan for the 6-story mixed-use building was for 80 units. The developer will ask for an increase to 109. The building design has been modified, but the height of the structure will remain the same. The building will also contain the golf course pro shop, clubhouse, restaurant, and banquet facilities. The planning division is supportive of the increase in units. Also tonight, City Council will get an update on the local food strategy. The city recently hired a full-time coordinator for the strategy through Eco Superior.
A local group calling itself the Society of Friends of Our Regional Hospital says they have a solution to the gridlock problems and lack of vacant beds at the facility. They want to see the Dawson Court Home for the Aged turned into a transition house for alternate level of care patients who are taking up hospital spaces. Cease Cranton is the president of the society. He says with Dawson Court scheduled to close in 2015, those 150 bed spaces could be put to good use. He thinks moving ALC patients out of the hospital and into Dawson would create space for 25% more acutely ill patients at the hospital. Recent statistics obtained by the group shows the number of ALC patients at Thunder Bay Regional has risen from 40 to 65 in the past 2 years. And Cranton says the results is patients in hallways and long wait times for emergency surgeries.
People have ruled out the LPH across the road, and this place is supposed to be coming available as soon as the Center for Excellence is completed. And no one has indicated what it's to be used for, and it couldn't serve the purpose any better than as a transition house.
Cranton's group has sent a letter to City Council asking them to consider a plebiscite in the 2014 municipal election on whether the city should transfer ownership of Dawson Court to the hospital. And if that doesn't work, Cranton says they plan to strike up a petition to push the idea forward. Dawson Court is scheduled to close in 2015 because it doesn't meet current building codes for healthcare facilities. Cranton says the province would have to spend the necessary dollars to make it suitable for ALC patients.
The stalled conversion of the Thunder Bay generating station was a hot-button topic at Queen's Park once again today. Last week, Energy Minister Bob Chiarelli raised eyebrows when he said any future generating plant in Thunder Bay will be used for just 6 hours per year. Local MPPs had to go into damage control the next day to clarify those comments. And today, NDP leader Andrea Horvath went after Chiarelli again on the issue.
And they have a minister who promised answers in, quote, 3 or 4 weeks, and then promptly took it back. And at the same time, told Thunder Bay citizens to get ready for a long, long wait. Now, is the minister's confusion a case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, Speaker, or is it simply a sneaky way of pulling the plug on the Thunder Bay generating station gas conversion?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that the leader of the third party is playing politics with this issue, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't dare say that. Mr. Speaker, the task force that has produced the draft report has a massive investment strategy for Northwest Ontario. We're already creating new generation in Thunder Bay.
New generation.
We have not made a final decision on Thunder Bay at this particular point.
Chiarelli adds that Thunder Bay has nothing to fear about the reliability of its electrical system.
Thunder Bay's Dailey newspaper was the site of a protest this afternoon. Close to 15 people gathered outside of the Chronicle-Journal's office on Cumberland Street to show their frustrations regarding an editorial published September 15th. The editorial was titled Sexual Rights, Public Norms and dealt with the case of a bridal shop turning away a transgender person. The opinion piece led to a rash of angry letters and prompted LU students as well as community members to demand a public apology. Gender Issues Center Coordinator Jael Chung says the article doesn't reflect the views of the community in any way. They're taking issue with paper's choice of words and believe the public was completely misinformed, and she calls the whole situation troubling.
Our petition to show that we demand a public apology from the Chronicle-Journal and to clarify that about the purpose of the washrooms, as well as to take ownership of the article and apologize for the gender misrepresentation.
Chronicle-Journal publisher Colin Bruce spent a few minutes outside speaking to the protesters before they marched to Waverley Park. Bruce says the newspaper welcomes their right to express their opinion, and he hopes they would respect the newspaper's right to express theirs. He adds that editorials, by their nature, tend to stir up a debate, saying this one obviously did.
Provincial police have now released the name of the 50-year-old Thunder Bay man killed in a motorcycle accident this weekend. Richard Cross was found alongside Highway 593 on Saturday. Police say it appears he lost control of his bike and skidded into a ditch. He was pronounced dead at the scene.
Elsewhere, OPP are reporting several thefts in the Shunya Township area over the weekend. According to police, several camps were entered and an array of home electronics were taken. Police also responded to the theft of a 2013 truck. It was located undamaged at the Silver Harbor Conservation Area, but several items were reportedly stolen from the vehicle. 2 vehicles were damaged Friday night in a collision with a moose on Highway 61 just north of the Pigeon River border crossing. A pickup truck initially struck and killed the animal. Then a car ran over the carcass as it lay on the roadway. The 89-year-old driver of the car was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. And a collision on Highway 61 just after midnight Saturday morning sent another motorist to hospital. Police say a pickup came into collision with a Jeep, causing the Jeep to roll several times. The driver of the truck fled the scene.
The Ontario Human Rights Commission is taking it local here in the Northwest. The Commission is hosting a 2-day workshop in our city discussing various human rights issues. The full-to-capacity training session is open to both individuals and organizations in the public and private sectors looking to gain more information on how to handle issues of discrimination. Cheryl Holmes has more.
Barbara Hall, the Chief Commissioner of the Ontario Human Rights Commission, says sadly in Ontario we still have racism and discrimination based on stereotypes of various groups. The HR Commission is trying to change that.
Our goal is to prevent discrimination from happening. We know that when it happens, it's destructive and soul destroying for the people who are discriminated against or have barriers put up in front of them.
One of those people who's experienced discrimination based on both her own physical disability and her race is Joy Asham. During a question period, she raised her concerns based on a specific instance where she was almost denied service at a restaurant because she's a First Nation woman. She says it's the smaller businesses which still seem to be in the dark about human rights issues.
It seems as if the larger organizations, the larger businesses, seem to have their policies and their training well in hand. It seems to be the smaller businesses that still seem to have trouble in understanding that there is, like an accepted norm of how to deal with issues. In fact, preventing them before they arise.
At this two-day workshop, more than 50 organizations are being represented to learn how to prevent those human rights complaints.
The good news is that many institutions, police services, school boards, whatever, are approaching us about wanting to learn about their obligations.
There are issues in human rights in Thunder Bay, particularly related to housing and particularly related to rentals. We're looking at Aboriginal issues. We're looking at accessibility issues. And what are the policies around those particular components?
The goal of the workshop is to get employers and service providers to understand their obligations and put in place preventative measures to best benefit the whole community. Cheryl Holmes, CBT News.
It's been a long time coming for the Aboriginal people of Gull Bay. After over 80 years, band members are preparing to cast their votes over a settlement offer from Ontario Power Generation. The building of dams by Ontario Hydro damaged reserve land many years ago. Just last month, more than 180 band members voted to proceed to a ratification vote, but it could be some time until that happens. Gull Bay currently has a registered population of more than 1,000 members, with about 320 people living on the reserve on Lake Nipigon. The previous offer of a $10 million settlement was turned down by Chief Wilfred King. According to King, this new offer is substantially higher, which is helping bring the long-standing dispute to a close. There is no word yet on when the ratification vote will be taking place, but the Band Council is getting ready for that day.
Preparing all the necessary documentation for the ratification vote, and we anticipate that this documentation will be ready within the next couple of weeks, and we're making sure that we follow the Indian Act referendum regulations, and that there's a process within that as well. So,
King says he feels confident that the motion will pass.
The fourth annual Miles with the Giant Marathon was another big success yesterday, and although there was some early morning frost covering the grounds, that didn't stop hundreds of people from coming out to take part. Each year, the goal of the race is not only to show what the city has to offer, but to give runners a chance to compete at beating their best scores. Now, half a dozen elite runners came to the event from Kenya, along with some from the United States and other parts of Canada. President of the Miles with the Giant Marathon, Barry Straub, says the runners were pleased with the new 26-mile course set last year, and this year they decided to keep it the same. He says each year the marathon has a huge impact on the city of Thunder Bay.
To come into our community to see what we have to offer for the world, and it's a showcase, but it creates some economic development, some tourism, and our restaurants and retail services are impacted by that. So when we have a lot of runners coming in, we're looking at about $800,000 worth of dollars coming into our community, which is significant for a weekend.
And Matt Scooby will have all the marathon results for you coming up a little later in sports.
Some national recognition for Dougal Media. It's been named the recipient of the St. John's Ambulance Mark Dailey Media Award. The award is given annually to an organization that helps in promoting awareness of the community services St. John's Ambulance offers. Stephanie Bateman is St. John's marketing coordinator and says there are a number of considerations when it comes to who they believe is most deserving of the award. Bateman says Dougal Media's involvement in promoting Operation Red Nose has been instrumental in their campaign success.
Major partners in this campaign, they provide a $48,000 sponsorship to this campaign every year, and they promote on not only on the radio but in the print, in the Source, TV News Watch, Global TV, on all of their outlets, and the breadth of the coverage has been incredible.
Dougal Media has been supporting the Red Nose campaign since 2009. One lucky Thunder Bay resident is now the proud owner of a vintage convertible. The Thunder Bay Museum held its 7th biannual draw in support of the museum's day-to-day operational costs and capital projects. Carol Campbell now owns her very own 1969 Pontiac Firebird convertible after the winning ticket was pulled this afternoon. The museum raises about $50,000 with each raffle, and tickets sold out in a month in advance this year. As a result, the next classic car raffle will be held next year instead of in 2 years' time.
Big surprise. It would be nice to have that this afternoon, right?
No kidding, Fiona. A beautiful day this afternoon, and we can expect more of that throughout the week. That's right?
Yeah, it's nice to know that the weather is actually going to be sticking around because today we topped out with a high of 17 Celsius, and it's only going to go up, not a lot, but go up a little bit from there for the rest of the week. We had partly cloudy skies. Right now, we're at our daytime high across the region. Sioux Lookout and Red Lake, Kenora, all at 22 right now. Incredible for this time of year. 21 for Dryden and Fort Frances, and lots of sunshine all the way across the board and even as far east as Sault Ste. Marie. Now tonight, we'll be dropping down to single digits. A low of 7 Celsius is expected under partly cloudy skies, and that's with the winds relatively, well, starting out moderate and then tapering off to about 11 kilometers per hour from the south-southeast. Now, as we head into Tuesday, well, we have more sunshine on the way, just a few cloudy periods here and there, but we've got some very mild air moving in. Now, this low would be troubling if it weren't for the fact that it is weakening. In fact, it's part of a cold front that's going to be moving in from the west, but as I said, it's weakening as it goes through, and the nice thing is in the prairies, there isn't a lot of water in order for these systems to pull up moisture and kind of reinvigorate themselves. So by the time it hits us, it's going to be nice and calm. The downside of it, although we are going to see really nice temperatures, will be below the jet stream with that nice flow of air for much of the week. By the end of the week, there's going to be no way to completely avoid it. There are some showers heading our way probably for Friday and possibly into Saturday. But I'll have more details on what we can expect for the next couple of days later on the news hour.
So enjoy the sunshine while we can. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks very much, Fiona. Well, the Kenyan military says now it is in control of that shopping mall that's been the scene of ongoing violence throughout the weekend. However, the situation continues to linger on. We'll have the latest from Nairobi for you right after these words.
So we were in the corner. Just as I was telling everybody, bend down.
Sounds of gunfire and explosions could be heard at a shopping mall in Nairobi again today as an attack by militants stretched into a third day.
At least 62 people are known to have died in the attacks, which started on Saturday. Dailey has the latest developments.
3 days into a malicious battle, and Nairobi is unnerved. 3 days, and again, no end in sight, even when the military moved in. An unknown number of militants still holding out and apparently still holding on to hostages. The Interior Minister says most civilians have been freed.
And we are very certain that, if any, there are very, very little hostages in the building.
And yet relatives insist loved ones are still missing. Nearly 1,000 were inside Westgate when the battle began, caught up in the terrifying chaos. Some of them apparently gunned down after the attackers confirmed they weren't Muslim.
I had about 30 to 33 kids with me. The shooting was going on. It was going on. So we were in the corner. Just as I was telling everybody, bend down.
The attackers belong to the Somali Al-Shabaab. In this audio message, they promised to kill hostages if the Kenyan military intervened.
Just a short while ago, early in the afternoon local time here, a burst of gunfire and explosions from the direction of the mall. Military vehicles coming in and out. We're not quite certain what is going on, but we've been asked to move out of the way. It now appears, as we've come back, that the mall is on fire.
More military moved in. The mall completely surrounded. Security forces said they were in full control, but at times it didn't seem like it, as when they used tear gas to disperse angry citizens who demanded a definitive end.
We are very grieved and we are solemnly consoled with our families, friends, and Kenyans who have died, and even the ones which have not been rescued.
It's a battle that has already claimed many innocent lives, and the relative peace of a city now sharply on edge. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Nairobi.
2 Canadians are among those known to have died after militants stormed that shopping mall in Nairobi. Today, the Prime Minister condemned what he described as a cowardly attack and said Canada would speak with other countries about appropriate action. Julie Van Dusen has the details.
In Ottawa, the flags have been lowered at the Foreign Affairs Office, mourning the death of Anne-Marie Deloge, a 29-year-old diplomat who worked at the Canadian Embassy in Nairobi. She was among those killed by Al-Shabaab militants. Vancouver businessman Naguib Damji also died in the attack. Meanwhile, speculation continues about a tweet sent yesterday. It was believed at one point to be sent from an account managed by Al-Shabaab, and it named a Canadian as one of the militants. Then a denial today by Al-Shabaab that its organization ever named anyone. The Prime Minister was asked today whether a Canadian was involved.
We obviously monitor developments very carefully. We exchange information on the travel and activities of persons of interest all around the world.
But he did say his government has trained its sights on Al-Shabaab.
Our government is the government that listed Al-Shabaab as a terrorist entity. We did that in 2010. And we have also passed a law to make it specifically a criminal offense to go outside of Canada for the purpose of terrorist training.
This group of observers says Canada must work more cooperatively with other nations to be more effective.
After the attacks in Nairobi by the terrorists, that both Mr. Harper and Mr. Baird were obliged to say publicly that no government can act alone in this world.
This foreign policy expert says there are other ways to fight the war on terror. More development assistance in Somalia is one way.
That area has become somewhat impoverished and insecure and dangerous, and as a result, attacks like this will take place.
Foreign Affairs Minister John Baird will speak at the United Nations General Assembly later this month. He says at a time when some regimes are threatening global security, Canada has a vital role to play. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
Omer Khadr was in an Edmonton court today arguing for a transfer from a federal prison to a minimum security provincial jail. Khadr was transferred to Canada from Guantanamo Bay to serve time for killing an American soldier in Afghanistan. Briar Stewart reports.
This is the first time that Omar Khadr is making an appearance in court in Canada, and as expected, there's a great deal of public interest. In fact, today's proceedings had to be delayed because officials here needed to find an extra room in order to accommodate all of the people. When Khadr walked into the prisoner's box, he flashed a grin at his legal team and as well as some of his supporters who were sitting in the front row. Now, this hearing really centers on just where Khadr should be serving his time. Khadr pleaded guilty to 5 offenses while he was in custody in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And after that he pleaded guilty, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The issue is just where does he serve his time? Right now, he's serving it at the Edmonton institution, but Khadr's lawyer argues that because he was 15 at the time the offenses were committed, he should be serving his time here in a provincial jail. Government lawyers are arguing against that, and today we heard from Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who spoke about just how serious these crimes are.
It is very important that we continue to vigorously defend against any attempts in court to lessen his punishment for these heinous acts.
Now, Khadr's case has been followed closely by many. In fact, before today's hearing began, there was a crowd of about 30 people who gathered, many carrying signs, and they held a small rally here before going into the courtroom.
At some point, Canadians will get to meet Omar Khadr, and they will realize that they've basically been fed a bunch of propaganda by both the American and Canadian governments.
It will ultimately be up to the justice to decide where Khadr should be serving his time, and it's not yet known when that decision will be handed down. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Edmonton.
There is news today that BlackBerry may have found a rescuer. The troubled Canadian cell phone maker has received an offer worth an estimated $4.7 billion US. Howard Gould has the story.
At a social media conference in Toronto this morning, BlackBerry's dire situation was on many people's minds. Even satisfied customers saying they wouldn't buy another BlackBerry phone, given the uncertainty surrounding the company. Temi Kolarinwa talked about BlackBerry in the past tense.
It's like the market has spoken, right? Like a lot of people want touchscreen phones that browse the internet very well. And it seems like BlackBerry just couldn't create a phone that fit that demand.
This afternoon, the market spoke again. A deal has been struck that could turn BlackBerry into a private company. A Canadian investment firm, Fairfax Financial, has offered $9 per share for all of the company's shares it doesn't already control. The chairman, Prem Watsa, saying in a statement that the transaction will open an exciting new private chapter for BlackBerry. There are few details. As one analyst put it, there are no guarantees what BlackBerry might look like should this transaction go through. It's not clear whether Fairfax would keep the company intact or, as some have suggested, turn it into a software company. Ken Wong is a business professor at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario.
I think this option has been known to them for a long time. And I think what really precipitated them taking this option, because it's not something they wanted to do, what precipitated it, of course, was the news of the $1 billion loss this quarter, all of the layoffs and the massive depreciation in the stock price.
There could be other competing bids for BlackBerry in the next few weeks, but the company, which was rapidly losing market share, subscribers, and money, appears to at least have bought itself some time. Howard Gould, CBC News, Toronto.
There's word today that 15 Canadian telecom companies will take part in the federal government's auction of new space on the airways in January. Now, the federal government had been hoping for foreign competition to shake things up, but that didn't materialize. Aaron Saltzman explains what's at stake.
It's really appealing to be out in the country.
When Andrew Choate moved here 4 years ago looking for peace and quiet, he wasn't counting on an added expense.
Oh, right. That's huge dollars.
His wireless bill, $582. That was for a single month earlier this year, and Choate doesn't even own a cell phone. His home is not on a fiber optic network. Satellite, he says, is too intermittent, so Choate uses a cell signal for his internet service.
So as you know, the text plans and data plans are pretty expensive on cell networks.
Particularly expensive, he says, when none of the handful of providers in his area offers a viable unlimited data plan. So Choate is paying close attention to the government's latest auction of wireless spectrum, waiting to see if a new player will offer better service to rural areas. This auction is selling off some of the prime real estate of Canada's airwaves. 700 megahertz is the same frequency that used to broadcast UHF signals to old analog TVs. It's more powerful than current cell signals, and phones using it will work in elevators and basements. The government was hoping that, plus a host of incentives, would entice large, deep-pocketed bidders to boost competition with Bell, Rogers, and Telus. It didn't happen.
It doesn't appear that there is a significantly capitalized new entrant coming in who can actually change the structure of the marketplace.
Not only did U.S. giant Verizon not register to bid, no other large foreign carrier did either. Just the big three, some regional players, and a couple of private equity firms, which means consumers...
They will have to continue to pay the prices they are paying right now.
Not what Andrew Choate wants to hear.
You feel that. And that's why I'm not running out and buying a cell phone.
Because even without a phone, he says, his wireless bill is already too expensive. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's what was happening on the markets in Canada today. Toronto saw the TSX inch up almost 5 points to 12,811. Meantime, on Wall Street, the Dow fell about 50 points to 15,401. The Nasdaq dropped 9 points to 3765. The Canadian dollar up over 1/10 cent to 97.23 cents U.S. Gold dropped $5.50 to $1,327 an ounce. Oil down over $1 to $103.59 a barrel. Week 3 of the NFL season course comes to an end tonight. It's been an up and down year across the board. You look at some of the supposed powerhouses, the Giants, the Packers, the 49ers, all off to rough starts. Others doing surprisingly well.
Absolutely, but it's been a good start to the season. Parity. That's the biggest thing I think with NFL season. So you won't agree with that.
It'll even out as time goes on.
Okay, just in case you didn't know, Peyton Manning, yeah, he's pretty good at football. I should be saying thanks, Captain Obvious, to myself, but the Denver Broncos pivot is the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 9 touchdowns and no interceptions through the first 2 weeks of the season. With his 309 yards passing last week against the Giants, Manning joined Dan Marino and Brett Favre as the only players to throw for 60,000 yards. The future Hall of Famer will look to continue his torrid start to the season tonight with the Broncos hosting the Raiders in the Monday Nighter. And if things weren't already bad enough for Oakland, Denver expects Pro Bowl cornerback Champ Bailey to be back in the lineup. So yeah, good luck there, I guess. Let's wrap up yesterday's action. Trent Richardson in the lineup for Indianapolis just a few days after being traded from the Browns. On his first touch as a Colt, goes into the end zone untouched for the touchdown. Caps an impressive first drive for the Colts against the 49ers D. 7-0 Indy. Fourth quarter, now 13-7 Colts. Andrew Luck off play action, going to do it himself. That's an easy touchdown. Indy up by 13. The 49ers offense struggled for the second week in a row. Colin Kaepernick gets hit by Jarrell Freeman, coughs it up. Indy recovers, and Luck's pretty excited about that. He gets the better of former coach at Stanford, Jim Harbaugh, 27-7 the final. Browns and Vikings, third quarter. Vikings down by 7. Christian Ponder calls his own number, scores his second rushing touchdown of the game, ties the game at 24. Less than a minute to play, though. Browns down by 3. Brian Hoyer connects with Jordan Cameron, his second touchdown of the game as Cleveland wins 31-27. How about the Chargers and Titans? Jake Locker hooks up with Justin Hunter. That's your game-winning touchdown. Nice grab. Tennessee wins 20-17. Packers and Bengals. Green Bay going for it on 4th and inches in the fourth quarter. They fumble the ball. It gets kicked around once more before Terrence Newman recovers it. He's going to take it 55 yards for the major. Randy Sheffy loves this. Barry Third, not so much. That made it 34-30 Cincy. With a minute and a half to play, Packers with one more chance, but Aaron Rodgers, his pass is deflected. Green Bay falls to 1-2, 34-30 the final in that one. Cardinals and Saints. Drew Brees connects with Jimmy Graham. That's a nice grab in the end zone. And then does it once, but not twice. Graham has over 310 yards receiving over the last 2 games. New Orleans is 3-0 with a 31-7 win. Lions and Redskins. Matt Stafford to Calvin Johnson. That gets him into the end zone. Washington is still winless. Detroit wins it 27-20. Bills Jets tied at 20. Geno Smith airs it out for Santonio Holmes, who somehow makes that catch in traffic. 71-yard touchdown. New York wins 27-20 in the Sunday Nighter. Bears and Steelers first quarter. Michael Bush punches it in for the touchdown. Chicago went up 17-0, and then the defense caused 5 turnovers in the game. They went on to win 40-23 the final there. In the lone CFL game yesterday, Lions and Rough Riders. Paul McCallum hit this 42-yard field goal as time expired to give BC the 24-22 victory. Thomas DeMarco threw 2 touchdowns in his first pro start, and the Lions moved into second place in the West. On the local scene, runners of all ages and abilities braved the cold weather yesterday morning to take part in Miles with the Giant. The event featured the half and full marathon as well as a 10K race. Last year's marathon winner Gilbert Kiptoo was looking to retain his crown, but it was his running partner who stole the spotlight and broke the record for best time. Courtney Rutherford has that story.
Just before 8 a.m. this morning, close to 19 runners started warming up to take part in the full marathon, waiting for the signal at the starting gate that sets them off for a 26-mile run. The course took marathon participants along Lake Superior and throughout both the north and south of the city. The runners traveled through Lakehead University, Chapels Golf Course, and Boulevard Lake, with an aim to challenge all levels of runners. Evans Mako Mamanyi from Kenya was the first runner to pass the finish line with a time of 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 25 seconds. Last year, Mamanyi placed second, and he says the only thing that gave him some problems throughout the race was the cold temperature.
The race was nice, but it was so cold. My hands were so cold when I reached like 12K. This round, the course was very nice. There were a lot of people who were showing us the way we go.
The third person to run through the finish line in the full marathon was Thunder Bay's very own Mark Marinez on a time of 2:31:32. He's placed third overall locally for the past 2 years, and although he says his back was pretty sore throughout the race, he said he toughed it out and hoped for the best.
My dream goal was 2:37. I abandoned that at mile 5 and just went for a better time than last year, and I got it.
And not long after, Nikki Wilberforce came in as the first female to cross the finish line with a time of 3 hours, 5 minutes, and 26 seconds. Wilberforce has won the women's race in 3 of the past 4 years. She said it was great to have so many people cheering along the course, which kept motivating her to push herself.
I thought it went really well. I did more long runs this year than I had last year, and my time was about where I was hoping to be. I mean, I always hope for a little bit faster, but my pace was on what I was hoping for, so I was happy with it.
Throughout the morning, luckily, the sun started to shine and warm up the city. Over 900 participants came running through the finish line after taking part in the half marathon and the 10 and 5 kilometer run. Courtney Rutherford, TBT Sports.
On the ice, Roberto Luongo is expected to play the entire game in goal tonight when the Vancouver Canucks host the Phoenix Coyotes in NHL preseason action. It's one of 7 games on the schedule this evening, and so much for preseason games not meaning much. There's been a handful of incidents requiring Brendan Shanahan's attention so far this exhibition season, and the latest one came last night. Peter Armstrong has more.
It began innocently enough. A preseason game, a meaningless fight between 2 mid-level players. Then the real drama started.
Penalty minutes than anyone else. Here we go.
Number 32 in white is John Scott, a giant, one of the biggest players in the NHL. His target, the much smaller Phil Kessel, the Leafs' star player.
Scott went after Kessel.
Scott dropped his gloves and mayhem ensued.
Whoa, this has brought something on.
Even the goalies went at it. Kessel's in trouble for those slashes as he backed away, but his teammate Dave Clarkson is in much deeper trouble. There at the top of the screen, you can see Clarkson leaving the bench to join in, a long-standing no-no in the NHL.
We're not proud or happy of what went on, that's for sure. And I think Dave Clarkson made a mistake, and now we pay for it.
Clarkson is facing a 10-game suspension and will forfeit more than $500,000. As the Leafs went through the motions today, every hockey analyst in Toronto went through the implications.
They were not smart at all.
This sports columnist says the game harkens back to another time of hockey that many had hoped had passed.
Especially when guys are jumping off the bench. I mean, I thought that was one sort of play that the NHL managed to get rid of because of their heavy suspensions.
It's just the latest in a series of preseason incidents. Edmonton's Sam Gagner had his jaw broken on Saturday when he was slashed in the head. Paul Bissonnette was suspended for 10 games when he jumped off the bench after this hit on his teammate Radoslav Klesla, all in exhibition games.
A lot of the time that the preseason gets downplayed, but there's still a lot of emotion.
And maybe it's not just the players' emotion in question. Just listen to the crowd. While many condemned last night's brawl, the fans on hand seemed to love it. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
On the diamond, the Daytona Dodgers scored 4 runs in the first inning on their way to a 7-4 win over the On-Deck Athletics in Senior Men's League playoff action last night. Daryl Fujihara and Brad Crocker both had a pair of RBI for the Dodgers, who take a 3-1 series lead in that best of 7. The winner will play the Orioles in this year's final. Meanwhile, the Toronto Blue Jays are in Chicago tonight for a makeup game against the White Sox. The Jays will then travel to Baltimore for a 3-game set against the Orioles. Speaking of the O's, they were trying to avoid being swept by Tampa this afternoon. That game is currently 4-4 in the 8th inning. Tampa currently holding the top spot in the AL wildcard, while the O's are 4.5 games back. Manny Machado actually looks like he broke his leg in that one, so a tough blow to the Orioles as well. For them, wise, tough for them to make the playoffs, I think, at this point, but again, a tough blow for a kid like that.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the keys to their future. You hate to see a 20-year-old player with his sort of ability go out at any time, especially now when they're fighting for a playoff.
Yeah, exactly. It was not pretty. So.
Okay, thanks very much, Matt.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tonight we've got the premiere of a show that Barry, I think, is almost as excited about it as I am. I'm talking about James Spader and The Blacklist. With more, here's your complete lineup on Teletalk.
Tonight we've got mystery, history, and a criminal mastermind on Global Thunder Bay. Starting at 8 on Bones, Brennan and Booth go undercover, but their cover hits a little too close to home. Then at 9 on Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod's wife sends him on a hunt for an 18th century witch. And at 10 on the premiere of The Blacklist, why did the most wanted criminal turn himself in? Over on CKPR Thunder Bay tonight, we have a deadly con and a terrifying mind game. First at 8 on Murdoch Mysteries, while racing to save his friends, William falls into a killer's trap. Then at 9, Aiden's search for a killer lures him into a psychopath's world on Cracked. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
Well, now that it is officially fall, we are starting to see, Fiona, the temperatures that autumn brings.
Well, certainly during that marathon, or at least at the beginning of it, a little bit of frost, but definitely cool temperatures are popping up across the country. In Thunder Bay, though, we did pretty well today. We did top out with a high of 17 Celsius under partly cloudy skies. And if we take a look at what's going on across the region, well, Vancouver currently seeing some sunshine there at 17. And in Edmonton and Calgary, they continue to cool down after a rather warm weekend. They're actually back to more seasonal values, but it's going to get cooler still. Heading into southern Saskatchewan, well, Saskatoon had lots of sunshine today and a gorgeous 22. Regina, 19 Celsius, and a fair amount of cloud cover. Heading into Winnipeg, they were under partly cloudy skies, and gusts up to 65 kilometers per hour today from the south, keeping things very warm, even at a humidex value of about 28. But if you want to see where the real cool temperatures are, you have to go to Ontario, specifically eastern Ontario. There is a frost warning for basically everything eastward or east of Sault Ste. Marie. Toronto at this time, 15 Celsius, lots of sunshine and more sunshine on the way. Ottawa at 11 is also expecting a bit of a warm-up tomorrow. And Quebec City currently at 10 with a fair amount of cloud cover. They're preparing for rain. Meanwhile, in the Maritimes, not a lot of sunshine there, that's for sure. Fredericton currently at 10 Celsius. And in the last 24 hours, well, they had a low of 10, a high of 11, and I guess they're back down to that low of 10. So not a lot of change in temperature. Meanwhile, temperatures have been dropping pretty much nonstop. In Charlottetown, they're currently seeing some rain and have had periods of rain throughout much of the day. Halifax has been dropping all day. They're currently at 12 Celsius. Alternatively, St. John's, 16 Celsius and fairly cloudy skies. Now today, nice and clear. Here's that cold front that I mentioned earlier in the newscast that is actually weakening. It's part of a low, and it's going to be drying up as it slowly heads in a northeasterly direction, and the cold front is kind of weakening. So we're losing this body of cold air as it heads towards us, but it's looking pretty dry for the next couple of days, and it looks like temperatures are going to be fairly stable. Tonight, ranging from mid-single digits to low double digits across the region, especially as you head further westward, and fairly clear. Tomorrow, lots of sunshine, just a few periods of cloud as you head further north, but temperatures anywhere from about 4 to 6 degrees above normal. High teens, low 20s seems to be the magic number. At this hour, we're at 15 Celsius under partly cloudy skies, and winds are from the east, kind of moderate at 19, but tonight we'll drop down to a low of 7, partly cloudy skies, and the winds are going to taper off. Now, as you head off to work or the kids head off to school, we'll start out with about 12 Celsius under partly sunny skies. And well, we'll talk variable skies throughout most of the day, but we should top out mid to late afternoon with a high of 19. As we head into Wednesday, we're going to hit 19 again, fingers crossed, under a few cloudy intervals, mostly sunny on Thursday with a high of 19 again. Remember, this time of year, we should be seeing highs of about 15, so this is not bad at all. 18 by Friday under mostly cloudy skies, and then we could see some rain on Friday night. And that will possibly continue into Saturday with a high of 16. So first 4 or 5 days of the week looking absolutely fabulous for the beginning of fall.
All right, thanks very much, Fiona. I'm sure a lot of people out there, and probably a couple of people at this desk, are an admitted lover of French fries. When we return, we're going to take you to France, where they've taken the phrase supersizing their pile of fries to world record-breaking levels. That's coming up right after these words.
All right, for those who are watching their waistlines, you may want to turn away for a minute. The biggest bag of French fries in the world now belongs to France. Thousands of volunteers gathered in northern France yesterday to peel, slice, and fry 6,200 pounds of potatoes. For the last 28 years, Belgium held the record. Officials were on hand to send the results to Guinness for approval.
Oh, that is one
You weren't hungry
large
before.
pile of fries.
I'm just not quite sure why.
Amazing. Amazing is
Yeah,
all it needs to
we
be
know
said
why,
about
don't
that.
we?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Let's recap our top story of the day for you. A Thunder Bay court has certified a $375 million class action lawsuit against the city of Thunder Bay. It's related to the flood damage suffered here in the city last May.
Week 3 in the NFL wraps up tonight with a Monday nighter. Oakland Raiders visiting the Denver Broncos. Terrell Pryor taking on Peyton Manning. Should be a good one.
All right, and tonight, low of 7 Celsius, partly cloudy skies for the next 3 days. 19 will be your lucky number. That's going to be the daytime high. Usually at this time of year, we're looking at highs about 14, 15, so enjoy it while it lasts.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a good night.